The storm was ruthless snow slicing sideways, the forest drowning in white. Navy SEAL Logan Pierce had trekked through blizzards before, but this felt wrong. Ranger, his trained German shepherd, suddenly froze, ears sharp, growling at something hidden between the trees. Logan followed his dog's gaze, and his blood ran cold. A woman was tied to a tree, her face bruised, her uniform shredded. At her feet, a second German shepherd trembled. Whimpering as if begging for help, but too exhausted to stand, Logan rushed forward. His instincts screaming danger, something or someone had done this, and they weren't far, and what Logan was about to face would push him to a breaking point he never imagined. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The blizzard had swallowed the forest whole, turning every path into a shifting maze of white. Navy SEAL Logan Pierce moved steadily through the storm, his breath sharp in the frozen air, every instinct on high alert. He wasn't on a mission just passing through the reserve during a routine winter survey, but something felt wrong. The silence was too heavy, the wind too sharp, the trees too still. Logan had survived war zones, but this quiet carried a different kind of warning. Ranger, his K9, sensed it too. Ranger suddenly stopped, his paws digging into the snow as his body stiffened. His ears shot up, nostrils flaring, muscles coiling with attention. Logan recognized instantly. This wasn't curiosity, this was danger. The German shepherd growled low, scanning the tree line as flakes drifted across his muzzle. Logan gripped Ranger's harness, following the dog's focused stare toward the deeper woods. "What is it, boy?" he whispered. Ranger took a single step forward, trembling with urgency. Logan felt his pulse rise. Whatever Ranger sensed, it wasn't good and it wasn't far. Ranger lunged forward, pulling Logan through the thick wall of falling snow until the trees suddenly opened into a small clearing and Logan froze. A woman in a torn forest ranger uniform was tied tightly to a pine tree, ropes digging into her arms and chest, her face streaked with blood and melting frost. Her knees shook violently, barely holding her up. At her feet, a German shepherd lay half-collapsed in the snow, whimpering weakly, his fur matted with ice. The woman lifted her head at the sound of footsteps, her eyes filled with terror and relief all at once. Logan's heart kicked hard. Someone had done this, and recently. Logan instinctively dropped to a knee, scanning the tree line as Ranger growled beside him. The forest was silent, but the snow told a different story. Fresh footprints circling the clearing, some deep, some hurried, all leading away into the darker woods. Whoever had tied the Ranger here hadn't just left. They had moved with purpose. Logan brushed his glove across one of the tracks, the edges still crisp. Minutes old. Ranger sniffed sharply, ears locked forward. Logan's jaw tightened. They weren't alone, not even close. Logan rushed to the woman's side, his gloves working quickly against the frozen knots cutting into her skin. "You're safe now," he murmured, though the tension in his voice betrayed the danger he felt. As the ropes fell away, her body collapsed forward, and Logan caught her before she hit the snow. Her breath came in shallow, trembling bursts. "Maya!" she whispered, forcing out her name as her eyes fluttered. Logan eased her down gently, checking her pulse, her injuries, her freezing skin. At his feet, her canine let out a weak whine, nudging her hand as if pleading for her to stay awake. Maya's breathing hitched as Logan wrapped his jacket around her trembling shoulders. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her lips were blue, her eyes unfocused. Then, with a burst of panic, she grabbed his wrist. "They're coming back," she rasped. "I found illegal traps. Dozens. When I reported it, they ambushed me. They said no one leaves the forest alive." Logan felt the weight of her words settle like fresh ice. She wasn't just hurt, she was hunted. Ranger growled softly beside them, sensing her fear. Maya pulled in a ragged breath. "Please, don't let them take my K9 again." Logan knelt beside the injured K9, his hand brushing over the dog's ice-stiffened fur. Shadow barely lifted his head, his breaths shallow and uneven, steam rising weakly into the frigid air. One look told Logan the truth: severe hypothermia, maybe internal injuries. "Stay with me, buddy," he murmured, pulling the dog closer and using his own body heat to warm him. Ranger lay beside Shadow, pressing his muzzle gently against the weakened dog in a silent plea. Maya watched through blurry eyes, whispering, "He protected me," until he couldn't stand anymore. Logan's jaw tightened. They had to move fast, just as Logan prepared to lift Maya. Ranger stiffened again, this time with a growl so sharp it sliced through the storm's howl. Logan followed his gaze and felt his stomach drop. The snow around them had begun to shift, new footprints pressing into the powder from the tree line. Fresh, close, multiple sets. The attackers were no longer wandering, they were circling back with purpose. Logan's grip tightened on Maya's shoulder. Ranger's hackles rose, Shadow let out a faint warning whimper. They were out of time. Logan swept his arm beneath Maya and lifted her with practiced strength, carrying her toward a cluster of fallen logs half buried in snow. Ranger led the way, ears pinned, every muscle primed for attack. Shadow limped behind them, refusing to leave Maya's side despite his trembling legs. Logan lowered her into the narrow shelter, shielding her from the wind. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The forest had stopped breathing, no wind, no movement. Only the crunch of approaching footsteps closing in through the white. Two figures emerged through the veil of snow, their heavy boots crunching closer, their voices low and eager. Logan pressed a finger to his lips, signaling Ranger, who lowered into a silent crouch, eyes blazing. The men scanned the clearing, rifles slung loosely over their shoulders, laughing as if certain their victim hadn't survived. The moment one stepped past Logan's hiding spot, the seal exploded from the snow like a shadow come alive. He struck fast, one twist, one takedown, the man dropped without a sound. The second spun around, raising his weapon only to meet Ranger's furious leap. Knocking him flat before he could fire, Logan barely had time to catch his breath, before a sharp click echoed behind him, the cold, unmistakable sound of a safety being switched off. A third attacker had been hiding in the trees, waiting. Logan spun, but the barrel was already aimed at his chest. "End of the line, hero," the man sneered. Logan tensed, ready to dive, but Maya's weak voice cut through the storm. "Behind you." "He's not alone," she gasped. Logan dropped instantly as another figure lunged from the side, confirming her warning. He rolled through the snow, narrowly dodging the strike. Maya, barely conscious, had just saved his life, before Logan could regain his footing. The hidden attacker charged again, boots pounding against the snow. Ranger darted forward, but the man swung a branch, knocking the K9 aside. Logan braced for impact until a blur of determination surged past him. Shadow, injured and trembling, forced himself upright and lunged with a desperate growl. His weakened body collided with the attacker's legs, sending the man crashing into the snow. The opening was all Logan needed. He moved in fast, disarming and pinning the attacker. Shadow collapsed beside Maya, but his eyes burned with unwavering loyalty. Logan pressed his radio, his voice sharp through the storm as he called for emergency extraction. The rescuers were minutes out, minutes they barely had. He lifted Maya into his arms again, her head resting weakly against his shoulder, while Ranger trotted beside them, keeping guard. Shadow limped close, refusing to fall behind despite his pain. The snowstorm battered them with brutal force, but Logan pushed forward, carving a path through the white. Every step mattered now. Survival depended on reaching the evac point before the attackers regrouped. Hours later, warm hospital lights replaced the icy darkness of the forest. Logan paced outside the treatment room, his clothes still damp with melted snow. Finally, a doctor stepped out, removing his mask with a relieved sigh. "She's stable," he said. "Another hour in that storm and she wouldn't have survived." Logan exhaled deeply, tension draining from his shoulders. Shadow, resting nearby with bandaged legs, lifted his head as if understanding. "The dog will pull through too," the doctor added. Maya had survived the impossible, and her loyal K9 had refused to let her go through it alone when Maya finally woke. Her voice was soft but steady as she revealed the truth. The poachers had targeted her because she'd rescued endangered animals from their traps the week before. They wanted to make an example of me, she whispered. Logan promised he would testify, ensuring they'd never harm anyone again. Shadow, now awake, nudged her hand, and for the first time since the rescue, his tail moved weakly. Ranger patted closer, resting his head on Logan's knee. Maya's eyes filled with tears. You and your dog? You were angels in the snow?